Hey, what's up guys? So we're here to go over the best patterns of justice build for Monk in Season 19. This is the new set that's all about Sweeping Wind that has just came out over on the PTR. So after doing some testing and checking out what's topping up on the leaderboards, I made a few different builds here for you guys just in case you guys want to try out other things or in case, you get lucky or unlucky with your RNG depending on your drops earlier on this season. But anyways, this is a new set that's all about Sweeping Wind, and with the 6-piece bonus, you're going to be able to deal a massive amount of damage with Sweeping Wind. It's 10,000% bonus damage, and it gains the effect of all of the runes. And then with the 4-piece bonus, instead of getting damage mitigation, you will be getting increased movement speed that can stack up to 10 different times. But anyways, let's go ahead and hop right into it, and I'll show you guys some gameplay, then I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the build. So currently, right now, there are a lot of very great Monk builds going into Season 19, and of course, this is a new set, so everyone wants to play it. However, I would say that this build still needs a buff. Specifically, I think the Tempest Rush needs to be looked at because the synergy just doesn't seem like it's as strong as it should be. But it takes us a while to get some damage amped up because this build is a Sweeping Wind build, so you need to get your stacks up on Sweeping Wind, of course. And once you get this up to max stats, which is at 13 right now, you're going to be able to deal a lot more damage. And we're going to be trying to proc with the Istvan's Paired Blades, trying to get that 5-stack of that. There's a lot to kind of manage. You're also trying to manage your Cyclone Strike so you can actually be able to not only bring enemies towards you, but also get a form of damage mitigation. But this is pretty much what the build looks like. You just hold down on whatever spirit generator that you choose to actually utilize. We won't grab that conduit because that will change the speed over here of our Rift. But pretty much keeping up Epiphany, Desert Shroud as much as you guys can. And pretty much just going up to enemies. Now, see, we lost all of our stacks, so we have to rebuild it up. So, again, you're not going to be dealing damage with, like, anything until you get that max stacks of Sweeping Wind. Unfortunately, this tile set is not very good, and we're already going to the second floor here. But, basically, the build is just a Sweeping Wind build. It's supposed to utilize this thing with Tempest Rush, but checking out on the leaderboard, there's not really too many people even utilizing it. There's one build with Flying Dragon that I will mention that this build is very similar to. But we just gotta proc all of those stacks, and then now we can go ahead and melt people. So usually, depending on, of course, what you have as far as your gear goes, you should be able to walk through most things in T16 with the exception of like the elites. But once you're at max stacks, it makes things so much easier, as you guys are seeing right here. Alright, so now that we've shown off kind of how the gameplay works, let's go ahead and go over the build and exactly what you want to actually run. So like I said, there are several different builds for Monk that are quite viable. If we look at the top of the leaderboard right now, we're seeing not only 7-sided strike, but we're also seeing an Inna's 7-sided strike build. We're also seeing up on the leaderboard a Wave of Light build, which has basically been the very relevant Monk build for quite some time. But the only person that has actually managed to go to the top page of the leaderboards with the new set is actually going to be this build over here utilizing Flying Dragon. So let's go ahead and first off go over what you're going to be actually looking for. I'm going to go ahead and do it this way because I feel like this looks a little bit nicer here. So as far as what you're looking for is obviously going to be utilizing the new set, because that's the point of this video, is to showcase off the new set. So with the 6-piece bonus, you do happen to have a bonus with Tempest Rush. And it says, while attacking with Tempest Rush while Sweeping Wind is active, will temporarily increase the size of Sweeping Wind after hitting 30 times within a short period. Sweeping Wind wind damage is also increased by 10,000%. That hitting your enemies 30 times is very hard to proc. It doesn't specify the time, and most people, even on the leaderboards, have opted not to run it. However, if you were to choose to run Tempest Rush, I would say Northern Breeze is a good option just because it makes it cost a little bit less. Because keep in mind, you're not going to be dealing damage with your Tempest Rush. It's just to actually proc attacking your enemies in a short period of time. So that's why Flying Dragon was utilized in that top build. But for the most part, a lot of people haven't even been using Tempest Rush. A lot of people instead have been actually opting to run the Mantra of Salvation with Agility, and that's going to give you extra damage mitigation because you're going to be able to dodge your opponents here. But as far as the build goes, that's the only thing that I would say is really different from like the top leaderboard one. He's also running Sledgehammer instead of Crystal Fist, but Crystal Fist I would say is overall better. obviously you'd want an Ancient, but it just makes it so you have extra form of damage mitigation, because most of the builds that have a 6-piece bonus will give you some form of like reduces your damage by X amount whenever you use a certain skill. However, this one just gives you movement speed instead, so that's why you're seeing most builds will be running this thing in the cube over here, La Fibrous, and that's going to give you a form of 50% damage mitigation. And on top of that, you're also running the Spirit Guard, which is going to give you extra damage mitigation by up to 60% here. So the build is a little bit squishy, I would say, without it. And that would allow us technically to run something else in the cube. There is Kurashiro Soul as an alternative if you are doing a speed build and you don't need that extra form of damage reduction. You can run this, and this is going to make it so Sweeping Wind will actually be able to basically be at max stacks at all time. That's the biggest deal breaker with this build, is that you can't really run Kurashiro Soul because you need the extra damage with Captain Crimson's, because basically your only form of damage is going to be with Sweeping Wind. But anyways, that said, let's go ahead and hop right into it. So if you're interested in pushing Greater Rifts, I can recommend Bane of the Stricken, Bane of the Trapped, as well as the Gogoga Swiftness. Again, you want that extra attack speed and cooldown reduction, and technically it gives you extra dodge chance. But as far as in the pieces, it doesn't matter if you happen to be running the which pieces of the captain set. You can run the captain's boots if you want to, and then the pants of the Patterns of Justice. Again, it doesn't really matter. You'll see that on the leaderboard. Sometimes people swap in and out, whatever your RNG blesses you with. But basically, as far as the helm goes, you're not looking for any forms of damage on the helm and the boots like you would on most builds. You're actually looking for the damage on the chest as well as the shoulders to increase Sweeping Wind's damage, because that's essentially what's giving you all your damage. But on the helm, you're looking for dexterity, life and or life percentage, and then crit hit chance. Then for the shoulders, you're looking for dexterity, resource cost reduction, cooldown reduction, and then Sweeping Wind damage is going to be the best, because again, Captain Crimson is going to give you extra damage mitigation and extra damage if you happen to have cooldown and resource cost reduction. So that's where you're going to be looking for on pretty much every single piece of gear that you can actually get. So on the gloves, you're looking for crit hit chance, crit hit damage, as well as cooldown reduction, and or you can go with resource cost reduction as well if you want to, depending if you really need those extra stats. And then for your rings, crit hit damage, crit hit chance, and then cooldown reduction overall. And then if you get dex, that's also fine. But we're looking at Unity if you're doing for Greater Rift pushings. And then for your weapon, you do want Vengeful Wind, or you can go for the Istvan's Paired Blade, which I'll show you guys another build in just a second. But pretty much it's the same thing. You throw one or the other in the cube. And then for the boots, you want Dex, Vitality, All Resist, and then Armor. And then for the pants, Dex, Vitality, and then All Resistance. For the belt, you want All Resist, Dex, Vitality, and then Life percent. And then for specifically the armor, you can get dexterity, then you can get life percentage and or vitality, or you can get elite damage reduction, and then of course Sweeping Wind, which is the most important one. And then for the amulet, if you're looking to do Greater Rift pushings, you definitely want the Flavor of Time. It's by far the best amulet. Looking for your element, whatever element you choose, like physical, lightning, fire, whatever. And then you're looking for crit damage, crit chance, and then reduces the cooldown of all skills. And then for the bracers, you want Spirit Guard. You're looking for your element. In my case, it's going to be physical, dexterity, vitality, then crit hit chance. Again, it doesn't really matter. The ring is going to be the same thing. But you're looking at either convention of elements, or you can actually run the Traveler's Pledge and the Compass Rose. So it's the Endless Walk set. Again, I'm basically utilizing this build here. This one technically has strength, but obviously you want dexterity, crit hit chance, and crit hit damage. And then if you can, instead of strength, you can go for cooldown reduction once your dexterity gets high enough. And then I really think Crystal Fest is one of the best other alternative choices. Sledgehammer, I think he just had it just because it happened to be ancient. It does technically have a high chance to stun your enemies, so you'll be able to technically get kind of damage mitigation in that sense, since they'll be holding still. But this is another form of damage mitigation, and this build has been seen. There's a lot of people on the leaderboards also running Crystal Fist, so I just want to mention that. As far as in the cube, Flying Dragon, then of course this to reduce damage, and then Royal Ring of Grandeur. I always recommend the Bottomless Potion of Kool-Aid. And then for our skills over here, we're looking at Cyclone, Strike, Eye of the Storm, Tempest Rush, Northern Breeze, just to be able to sustain it longer. Then Dashing Strike, blinding speed, so we're able to get extra dodge. And then Way of the Hundred Fists Assimilation. This is going to give us extra damage on the third hit. So all damage increased by 5%. And then Sweeping Wind, again, choose your element. It doesn't really matter which one, because with the 6-piece bonus, you will be gaining every single one anyways. As far as the 2-piece bonus, Sweeping Wind gains the effect of every rune. So just choose whatever color you like the most, or whatever your RNG favors. And then lastly, we have Epiphany, Desert Shroud. This is going to give us extra damage mitigation. And then for our passive, Seize the Initiative. This is going to give us increased damage. If you are running the Flying Dragon, and if you really want to try to proc that 6-piece bonus, Seize the Initiative is great for that. And then we have the Guardian's Path, and then we have the Beacon of Ytar, as well as Harmony. Now, going into another build over here, this is also another build that was seen up towards, it wasn't on the front page, but it was another build that has been on the leaderboards. It's using Istvan's Prayer Blades. I opted to run these because depending on your RNG of what you get, because getting Crystal Fist, you can't get it off of Jank Meme, so you're going to have to get lucky and just start re-rolling those Crystal Fists. But if you happen to have Ancient Ones, obviously, this set is pretty great for damage mitigation, because you're going to get extra armor, you can increase attack speed and damage. This is great for that. So that's like the only big difference here with these. And then on top of that, I opted not to go for Tempest Rush. Again, it's supposed to work well with it, but it doesn't really work well enough, because the radius that it gets increased by is not essentially enough. If you look at a lot of people that are on the leaderboards, they're not even using Tempest Rush at all. Instead, what they opted to run is Mantra of Salvation Agility. That's actually going to give you an extra form of damage mitigation. But if you're not running your Vengeful Wind in your weapon slot, then you have to cube it. It is by far the optimal choice as far as weapon goes for this build. You need it if you're running this set, essentially. But as far as the changes on the speed build, and as far as the gems go, once again, it's going to be the Bane of Stricken, as well as the Gogok Swiftness and Bane of the Trap. You can run Powerful if you're doing speeds as well. And then Diamonds and everything just to give you extra survivability. But if you are looking to play more of a speed build, you're looking at Nemesis as always. And then you can also run Mantra of Salvation, Wind Through the Reeds, and that's going to give you extra movement speed as well as fleet-footed. Now, as far as theory crafting, I've seen other things be used. I've seen people also use the Sun Wukong set, because it makes it so your damage taken is reduced by 50% while Sweeping Wind is active. Obviously, if you're doing Greater Rift pushings, this is probably not going to be ideal, because Flavor of Time is by far the best amulet in slot if you're looking to try to RNG and get the highest Greater Rift push, because pylons can last twice as long. But I've seen some people do Sun Wukongs instead of the captains. Again, it's just damage reduction. And then I've also seen some people try Ingyom. That's just going to give you extra damage mitigation, because there was a build, it's not on the top anymore, but instead of Epiphany, what they were doing with Ingyom is basically 100% keeping up the Serenity. So that makes it so you absorb all damage and you're immune to everything, and they're running Ascension, which increases the duration of Serenity by 4 seconds. So pretty much it just keeps it up 100% of the time, and you basically run that instead of Crystal Fist, because Crystal Fist is only used for damage mitigation. Now, if you do the 100% uptime of the Serenity, if you wanted to keep it up with Ingyom with Ascension over here, you can, however, get a different piece in your cube. For example, you wouldn't, at this point, you won't need the extra damage reduction, because you will be basically invincible for the most part of the game. It just technically does require you to kill an elite first, but if you are playing speedruns and you just want to run let's say Nemesis in here instead, and you want to run, you can do all guilds as well. There's a lot of room for potential theory crafting as well. But as far as the passives go and things that you can swap in and out, what I could recommend, I've seen people use Siege of the Initiative. I've also seen people use Guardian's Path. These can be kind of swapped out, but pretty much everyone is using Beacon of Ytar as well as Harmony. But alternatives to either one of these, you can run Sixth Sense if you want to, but that's the only other thing people are running instead. But anyways, that is the build for Monk in the new season over here with Patterns of Justice. But hopefully this video was informative and helped you guys kind of maybe get an idea of what you want to play in Season 19. Again, I feel like this set does technically need a buff with either the 4-piece or the 6-piece. You probably need a 4-piece damage reduction that can stack up to 10 times, and then you can get some extra damage mitigation through that. Basically, they just need to make it 50% reduced damage taken, and that way you're kind of freed up to essentially utilize something else in the cube. And then on top of that, I feel like they need to look at Tempest Rush, maybe also getting a damage buff. There is an item I know that can increase the damage of Tempest Rush by 600%, but at that point, are you going to run that in your main hand and then cube the other thing? I just think that there's better options in the game. That's what most people have decided to do, is just completely forget about Tempest Rush. The radius isn't large enough, and on top of that, it doesn't keep itself up the entire duration. But again, hopefully this video helped you guys out, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. And if you are new here and do want to see more Diablo content, BlizzCon is just around the corner. Diablo 4 D2 Remastered and Immortal, as well as maybe some other Diablo content will be coming out very soon. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. And if you do want to see more Diablo stuff, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and you'll definitely see more. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good one. And I'm signing out. Peace.